All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of It Happened to Me. I'm welcoming to my show my good buddy, Doc Wesson. And how are you doing tonight, Doc?
Rocky, I'm doing well. And you?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm excited to be here. This is one of my favorite things to do now is have these interviews with people. And I understand you have a cool story to tell us. So why don't you introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about you, and then let's get into your story.
Well, I'm Doc Wesson. I've got a interesting story that took place, a UFO sighting story that took place in about 1995, somewhere right around in there.
So you were 29.
I was a young man. I was, barely out of high school. But anyway, I was living in Stephenville, Texas, and actually living in Lingleville, which is right outside of Stephenville. It's where the dairy meets the air. It's a farming community, ranches, and a lot of dairy. And we're living way out in the country. It was a moonless night, and I had a little studio in the house, and I had a guy that came out to the house to record some guitar. And so we were spending the evening in the house recording some guitar. And when the session ended, I was trying to be the polite host, so I walked him out with some of the gear, and we're standing out in the yard, once again, a moonless night, and standing out in the yard, and I'm talking to him, and out of my peripheral vision, I catch a beam of light, and the best way to describe it is the light was catching up to itself, or the object, because I'll use my hand to describe it. It was going like, zip, 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 4 of them, zip, and then it was gone. And it lasted long enough for me to go, "Hey, did you see that?" And he got to turn around and watch about the last 2.
Oh,
So
wow.
it went all the way across the night sky. And I looked at him and I said, "Have you ever seen anything like that?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Well, I think we just saw a UFO of some form or fashion." And of course, then now in 09 and 08, it made national news that there were some sightings in Stephenville. And again, in 15, there's been some sightings down there. So something's going on in Stephenville. It might have to do with the gas of the cows. I'm not sure. But
Absolutely.
It might have something to do with that. Maybe attracting the aliens. They're somehow attracted to Holstein cow gas. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it fuels their craft. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, enough methane, right?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe they're sniffing methane. The aliens have a cow methane habit, and that's why they've arrived. But it was one of the most unusual things I've ever experienced in my whole life, because there's no way that nothing moves that way. It wasn't a falling star. It wasn't anything that was man-made, because nothing moves like that. I mean, it was like I said, zip, and then it would pause for a second, and then zip, and the light would just kind of be a trail, and then to a little object, and then a trail into a little object. Yeah, wild.
And so each time it did one of those little zips, was it just like cutting across a chunk of the night sky?
Correct. It would be like if you were looking at the sky, the whole sky from horizon to horizon, it would be like cutting it in force, as it went past. And
Wow.
and since that night, I've been clairvoyant.
Yeah. Have you?
Oh, yeah.
You've been able to see everything that's going to happen.
Pretty much. And I can read your mind right now. But,
oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's dark in there. It's really dark.
That is 100% accurate. I barely want to see what's inside my head. I doubt anybody else wants to.
But it was unusual. One of the strangest things I've ever experienced. Like I said, now there weren't little beings coming out of a orb or anything, but nothing moves like that I know of. So, wild night.
Well, I guess the question would be, have you ever seen anything like that since or before that? That was it, huh?
That was it. That was the only time I've ever seen anything that resembled that at all. And like
so
I
before
said,
that, were you interested in alien stuff, or did this maybe interest you? Did it make you go, whoa, I need to
Oh,
research this or anything?
I've always believed. I've always believed. I've always loved it,
Okay.
and so, yeah, it was just, to me, it was just like, well, okay, that's I'm good with that.
That's proof enough.
Proof enough for me. I'm good. You know.
So, you said you've kind of always believed. What led you down that path of always believing? So, obviously, ever since you were little, but was it a specific show or movie or?
No, it just makes sense that there's, we have a tendency to think real small, and if you really try to put this in perspective, there's got to be some life out there in some form or fashion. Years ago, back in the late 80s, I actually got to see the Hubble Space Telescope before it launched.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I was probably, you know, 50, not even 50 yards, probably 20 yards from that. It was enclosed in a area where they were working on it, and of course that was all vacuum sealed, and there were no dust particles, so we had to stand and look at it. But I mean, it was right there. It was like being in a museum, and saw the Hubble Space Telescope. So that was fascinating to me as well.
Absolutely. Well, and just out of curiosity, did you see the videos that were the Go Fast or the Tic Tac videos that were released and then verified as by the government as real unidentified flying phenomena?
Oh yeah, I look at anything that has that in it all the time. Fascinated by that. And let's face it, fighter pilots are seeing these things. So it's undeniable, really. We just don't know what or where or who but I think in time, I think people are getting numb to it. I don't think they're freaked out by it anymore. I think if something would happen, there would be some kind of connection. I think people would just go, well, okay, that's what we're doing now. Talking to
I think you're
aliens.
right. I think we might finally be ready.
Yeah, I think we are, really. People are just kind of, how many movies have been made about it?
Uh-huh.
How many people have seen things that are unusual? How many people have reported this stuff and swear by it and willing to ruin their reputation by it?
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure you probably know who Bob Lazar is. It
Yeah.
it basically ruined his life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he has his business now, but for 40 years, people have been basically telling him he's crazy. And
Well,
then,
and I really wish I would see one, because my life is already ruined. So it really wouldn't matter. And then I could just come out and let people know what it's all about.
yeah, there you go. See one up close and in person, take some pictures.
Take some pics with them and some selfies. Say, hey,
Yeah,
stand back here,
yeah,
and kind of wipe the green off, and we'll have a pic and we'll be good.
yeah. Maybe buy him a beer.
Of course.
Invite him to a show.
Go smell some cows.
so, so on that note, do you think? Well, couple of things. First off, talking about the Tic Tac video and the Go Fast video, right?
Mm-hmm.
David Fravor's done several interviews about that, and I believe he's an extremely reliable type person. I mean, you don't get to be a squadron leader without being a pretty serious individual.
Mm-hmm.
And according to him, there has recently been a high level government official that gave a briefing at Congress about vehicles that the United States has in their possession that were not made on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of waiting for that that to hit.
Oh yeah.
But I guess the question would be, would you be surprised if the government just finally came out and said, okay, yeah, we know there's aliens, there's just nothing we can do about it?
I wouldn't be surprised at all, and I don't know why it's taken them so long. And they could just take that spaceship and put it on tour and charge people, and we could pay off the national debt.
There you go.
I've
That's
got all
probably
this
true.
figured out, Rocky. I've got all this figured out.
I believe you 100%. So if this is something that you're interested in, have you watched quite a few UFO type movies and read books, or is it just something you're casually interested in?
On and off. I've a little bit of both, but basically kind of casually interested in it. But if I ever see anything like that, um, any kind of article or anything that comes over the phone or in the news, I'm interested in it all immediately. I'm reading about it. In fact, they're picking up some radio signals from some distant planet or somewhere right now. That's in the news right now.
I actually hadn't heard about that. As you know, I work a lot, so I only
Well,
get to research
that's
this
why I
stuff.
do these interview things, to keep you informed. But yes, no, that's in the news right now. It really is. It's in the news, and they're picking up these radio signals that are they're actually there's a pattern to them, and
Oh,
look it up because it's fascinating.
yeah, I will have to look it up because that's something that's always interested me. Probably for the last, like kind of what I was telling you. I try to keep my personal opinions and stuff out of these, but I have to admit that the search for extraterrestrial intelligence is something that's very interesting to me. And
Well,
the fact that we have so many reliable, what I would consider reliable eyewitnesses, like pilots, those guys go through rigorous training, and
sure,
gals obviously go through rigorous training, and they're just, there's no reason for them to lie, because like you said, it can ruin their reputation.
sure.
So for them to come out and say, no, we're seeing these things flying around, and aircraft carriers are tracking these things that come in from above 80,000 feet and go down to a few feet above sea level and hang out for hours and just kind of flit around at will is pretty crazy.
Nothing we're making
No, and
that
that's,
anybody knows. Nothing it's completely beyond our technology.
yeah, well, it would be revolutionary to have
Mhm.
something that could move like that and not have combustion coming out the back, no heat source coming out of it. That'd be pretty cool.
Mhm.
So, I guess after you saw this, did that cause you to believe in anything else paranormal, or did it just confirm your UFO interests?
I mean, it really did just confirm my interest, and it was just a wonderful story to tell whenever that subject comes up around a campfire, sitting around with friends, because you'll say, "Well, have you ever seen a UFO?" And I'll go, "Yes, I have," and I get to tell that story. But it didn't really surprise me. It didn't really. I wasn't affected by it, except the fact that I can now say I feel I've seen an unidentified flying object.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like you said, there's nothing that moves like that.
No,
Nothing. Nothing
it's
that we make.
impossible. No,
Yeah.
nothing.
So the guy that saw it with you, what was his reaction?
He was blown away. I mean, like I say, it happened behind him, so I'm looking at him, and I caught it out here. I'm looking at him, and it happened slow enough that I could say, "Did you see that?" And he got to turn around and see the last two. So by the time he turned his body around and looked where I was pointing, he saw at least the last two. But he was blown away. I said, "What do you think that was? Did you see that?" He goes, "Yeah, that was really weird, man." I said, "Oh yeah, that was very strange."
Absolutely.
So it
Well,
was a lot of fun, and something I'll never forget.
well, yeah, obviously you're still talking about it today. Still something
Exactly.
that's, and it's pretty clear in your mind what happened. It's not like it's a memory that faded.
No, and sometimes I'll just walk around empty shopping malls talking about it to myself, and I've gotten arrested before for that. But sometimes I'll do that, and that's a little weird. That's taken a little bit too far.
That is a little too far. That is a little too
But
far.
it's
So
happened.
no,
But
so no UFO conferences for you is what you're trying to say.
no, no, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you're a musician, working musician. You get to travel around quite a bit. No other paranormal experiences, huh? Just this one.
Working in bars, that can be you'll meet a lot of strange beings in those. So, but that's many
That's true.
years ago. That doesn't happen anymore. But nothing else that really is as strange as that night or as unusual as that night.
All right. Well, I always give all my guests, especially the ones like you who have a band or music page to promote, an opportunity to kind of put out there where people can find you, come hang out, and you can tell a story in person. So take this opportunity to tell everybody what your websites are, and then we'll sign off.
Cool. We got threefools.net. Three Fools on Three Stools is my band, threefools.net, and docwesson.com. You can go to that. and come on out and see a show, and we'll talk about UFOs and things.
I'm sure you would tell the story for a beer.
Easily, not hands down, not a problem.
Well, Doc, I really appreciate you taking time out of your evening to come on the show. I know that you're a super busy guy, a very talented musician. So thank you again, and I'm sure that I'll be seeing you here very, very soon, sir.
Well, Rocky, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to kill this, and we can hang out for just a second.